Dana Lintz is a father to two outstanding young men, ages 25 and 20. His oldest son is a junior at Baltimore City Community College, studying physics and engineering. His youngest son is a freshman at Florida Tech, studying psychology. Dana is an assistant director for the Office of the Executive Secretariat at the U.S. Small Business Administration and a writing instructor at the Graduate School USA in Washington, D.C. Dana has been a divorced dad for 17 years. Please welcome my friend and yours, Dana Lintz. Hey, Dana.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. Thank you so much for being my first guest on the Black Parent TV.
Absolutely, I'm honored. Thank you for asking.
Well, here's the thing I'm curious about. You are a private person. We've known each other since we were 7, 8 years old.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. It's been a long time. It's been almost 2 years. And you're a relatively private person. So I'm curious, what made you decide or agree to come on this show and share your experience, your truth, and your wisdom?
Well, I think back to my experience when I was going through my divorce and the whole court experience. And I just really felt like fathers were not validated or not thought of as viable parents. And it just seemed like the court system was automatically stacked against men, particularly men of color, and just discounted our feelings, our abilities. And I just want to really, in my way, change that and to show that, Black men and men of color can parent, and we're not that absent parent that society has said we were, and that we want to be active in our children's lives and want to just be seen as viable parents, and given equal time or quality time with our children.
When you were going through the divorce experience, particularly court, before this happened, did you think you would be treated differently? Did you think you would be treated unfairly? Had you any insight into what the experience might be like? Or did you go in having no idea and then in some ways blindsided?
I had some idea because I went through the court process once before with my first son and the mother of my first son. This was before I was married. And so even in that process, it was really, really hurtful, almost humiliating. And so I had kind of gone through that experience once before. And so having gone through it again, when I was going through my divorce, I was somewhat prepared and not really surprised, but still disappointed and just hurt by that, by the whole experience, by the outcomes.
So I appreciate you going there, because I was not necessarily going to go there, but I'm glad you did. I think a lot of parents listening now will be curious about a few things, so I'm just going to ask what I think are curious questions.
Okay.
The whole experience being hurtful, was it hurtful because, to what extent did the players in this process bring about hurt? And if you are comfortable naming the players, I know we're talking about if we're in court, then we know who those players are, but then there's also the mother who's a player in this whole process. I'm wondering if you're willing to share where the source of the hurt came from.
I would say the source of the hurt came from the two mothers of my children and the two judges in both cases. It was just very hurtful and almost humiliating because I had, in both instances, I had a great job. I made significantly more than both the mothers of my children, and I had a home, and I had the time and the willingness to put into being a father to my children. And in both instances, it felt to me like, and I could be wrong, I can't speak for them, but it felt to me like in both cases, the mothers just really seemed to use my sons and my love for my sons against me in a sense, and as far as trying their best to limit the amount of time that I had with them, while at the same time trying to maximize the amount of money that they would get. And it was almost as though I wasn't relevant. As long as I paid money, that's all that they seemed to care about. And it didn't matter that that I wanted to be a father to my sons. And then I just kind of felt like the judges in both cases kind of discounted my ability and my willingness to be a parent as well. And just, the little bit of time to me that I seemed to get with them, but was just kind of hurtful and insulting to some extent.
So you went being a full-time dad to your boys to what?
To every other weekend. My oldest son, I did get a little more time in the summer. The youngest son, I got, a few weeks in the summer, and it just kind of was insulting to me. Of course, I ended up in both cases. I took both mothers to court several times because I wanted more time, knowing that there was a good chance I was going to end up paying more money, because each time I did that, I was making more on my job. But I didn't care about that. I just wanted to spend more time with my son. So I subsequently took both mothers of my children to court several times to get more time with them.
And did it work out? Did you get more time?
No, it did not. It did not work out.
So wait a minute. Let me make sure I get this right. Your time was taken away from being, fully present in your children's lives. And you're fighting for more time with them, yet you don't get the more time that you're fighting for.
Correct.
How in the world did you emotionally manage that?
It was very hurtful. And I, for a long time, in both cases, I was bitter, and I admit that I was bitter. I just, my way of dealing with it was to just, the time I had with my sons, just make the most of that time and make those times as memorable as possible. And just really just, whether they were present, physically present or not, just try to be the best dad that I could be to them. Trying to phone them and just see them wherever I could, support them and go to their games when they were doing different activities. Just trying to find creative ways to spend time with them. So that was kind of how I dealt with that. with that anger.
Well, that's a very healthy way to deal with that. I have to ask a couple of more questions about this. Did you talk to the mothers and say, hey, I know this is going to sound like a silly question, David, but I got to ask. Did you talk to them and say, hey, I'd like to have more time with my sons, or did you just go right to court to get more time?
I let them know that I wanted more time with them. And again, I don't know that their decisions were based on what they thought was best for the child or what they thought would most hurt me. And it just kind of felt like it was based on what would most hurt me by keeping me away from them.
All right, so you're saying, hey, I want more time with the boys, and they're saying no. They're saying maybe later, get back to me, or the boys don't need more time with you. Like, what do you say to that reasonable request?
I don't remember the reasons. I just know that it didn't happen. I think it was usually, oh, well, you know, I'm going to stick with what the court says. And so that was that. And I think as long as it was to their advantage, you know, I don't know that they, and maybe they didn't think I was going to be a good dad. I don't know, but I don't think that that's the case. I really don't, because I think they know in both instances, I think they know and knew how much I love my sons and how much I was willing to be with them and be the father that I could be to them. And a lot of it, and they knew this, a lot of it was motivated by the fact that I didn't know my dad when I was growing up. He left when my mom was pregnant, so I never knew him. I never saw him. And so I just never wanted my sons to experience that or ever feel like their dad didn't fight for them or try to be there for them. And so I think they knew that was a huge motivator for me, and didn't really change anything.
I understand. So there was an impact on you, obviously. There also was an impact on your sons. There's just no way that they could not have been influenced, impacted, challenged, and changed by not having their father in their lives the way that you once were. So what was the impact on your boys?
On my boys or on me or on both?
On your
or all?
Sons. I want to talk about the impact on your sons not having you there as frequently as you were. Did you witness anything? Did you sense anything? Did you talk about anything with them?
I always let them know that I wanted to be with them as much as possible. And I do remember in both instances, the mothers complaining that the boys didn't listen to them, but they listened to me, and I only had to say something once. And in both cases, I think that bothered them as well. But to me, I think that probably impacted them because they didn't have more of a father's perspective and maybe a father's way of dealing with things. So I think that probably was one of the impacts that all of this had on both of them.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I remember my oldest son, when it was time for him to go back home. It was during the summer. My oldest son, I was actually literally driving back and forth to New York every other week. And the schedule I had was
from DC.
From DC.
Wow.
I had them the same weekends, which I really, really planned and wanted so that they could also know one another. My youngest son was here in the DC area, Maryland area, and then my oldest son was in Brooklyn, New York. And so I would have them both the same weekend. So my schedule for years was I would take my youngest son, drop him off at daycare on Friday morning, because my youngest son would come to me Thursday evening. I would drop him off at daycare. As soon as it opened, I would drive to New York, to Brooklyn, pick my oldest son up. It was about a 3.5-hour drive, sometimes 4, depending on traffic. Turn around and come right back so that I could get my other son out of daycare by the time it closed. And I did that for a long time because I wanted to be with my sons no matter what it took, no matter what that looked like. And so it was draining, but the reward was just having my sons together and seeing how they, became more attached to one another as well. And I remember one summer when it was time for my oldest son for me to take him back to New York. And we were sitting in the den looking at TV, and I was like, Christopher, you ready? Oops. Anyway, you ready to go back? We have to get back to New York. And he broke down and just started crying and grabbed me and was like, I want to stay here with you. And then the youngest son grabbed me and he started crying, like, I want to stay with you too. And that really, really, really hurt. Yeah. Tremendously. That hurt. So I do know that there was an impact on them.
Yeah. Clearly they missed their father.
Yeah.
They longed for you. Yeah. I mean, This is what happens when, unfortunately, our children have to go between homes. I mean, I know I've been there, still sort of in it in a way. So, well, let's talk about your boys for a moment and tell me what it is about your sons that makes you so happy and proud.
Well, I tell them all the time, and they know this. This is I tell them all the time, they are the best part of me. And I'm always happiest when I have the two of them together with me.
Do you actually say that to them?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I love that.
Absolutely. And they know that, and I say that all the time. I am very affectionate with my sons. I still hug them. I still kiss them. I will just grab them out of nowhere and hug them and give them a kiss. And, just, I'm really proud of them, of both of them. They are amazing young men, and I've always wanted them to grow to be better looking, smarter than I am, and I've gotten my wish. The only thing I don't like is that they're taller than I am. Well, the oldest one is. I don't like that too much. But yeah. But so
it's kind of cool that one of them. I mean, both of them are in amazing, studying amazing topics. Physics and engineering. I mean, sometimes it's one or the other, but we got physics and engineering, and the other one studying psychology. These are just dominating fields of study that they're in. So they definitely are smarter than you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I, I my oldest son, which was so things changed when he finished middle school. My oldest son, um, his mom decided to go to another country to teach, and she let him come live with me full time.
Oh,
And so from the ninth grade up until eighth grade, I believe, eighth or eighth grade up until he graduated from high school and went off to Morehouse College, he was with me full time.
wow. Because
And so
how old were they when this all went down? Let's get the time ages correct.
when he came to live with me full time,
Now, how old was your oldest when the divorce issue started?
all right, so I guess Christopher, the oldest would have been 8 or 9, and the youngest would have been 3 or 4,
Okay,
because they're exactly 5 years apart.
got it. So very young, obviously, because you mentioned taking one to daycare. So your youngest to daycare. Okay. So eighth grade until graduation from high school, the oldest became your full-time joy.
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
man, what was that like? You went from hell to heaven.
um, it was awesome. It was awesome. I mean, you know, it was probably harder for him because he had to learn a whole new set of rules and a whole new way of living. But I think it was beneficial to him, to both of us, of course, but to him, because I think it was the first time in his life he had stability. Like, I've been in my house since 2004. And so he had to be 8. Yeah, he had to be about 8 or 9. And this was the one house that both sons have known consistently since very young, because both of the moms have moved around quite a bit. And so I think it gave him a sense of stability and a sense of consistency. And I had a different way of parenting than what he was probably used to, because I had rules. I was very consistent with my rules, and I wasn't nearly as lenient as the mom was, and not, no indictment against either one of them, but I just was a lot probably firmer than the moms were for both of my kids. And so this is something that he had to get used to. But he really thrived. He thrived. He joined JROTC in high school. He became the captain. He actually led his high school to the championships for the first time in I don't know how many years. When he got into his when he went to his high school, I felt like, because my background is teaching, and so I just kind of felt like the school was a good school, but I felt like the classes were just too big, and I didn't feel like he could learn in that large an environment where most of the day was spent on trying to control the class rather than actual instruction. And so I was going to pull him out and put him into a private school, but he didn't want that because he had made friends and he was really enjoying it. And then he joined ROTC. I made a deal with him. I said, well, if you can do all AP classes and honors classes, I'll let you stay. And he did just that. That motivated him, and he did just that and was able to, because once that happened, the class sizes shrank considerably, and there was much more instruction and not having to discipline or babysit. To me, that's what it felt like, the students. And so he did that. He kept his end of the bargain, and I kept mine. And so I think the only thing that I regretted about that was I couldn't help him with his homework when he was taking AP chemistry and AP physics and AP calculus. I mean, I could spell it, but I couldn't help him with that. And I had a master's degree, and I was just like, this is like, these things are foreign languages to me. I was like, so, but he did well. He got in Morehouse. He actually, I was so proud of him. He won $150,000 scholarship to go to any school that he wanted to go to, and he ended up choosing Morehouse.
Wow.
So that was phenomenal.
That is phenomenal.
And I'm gonna just brag. Since I'm bragging, my youngest son won. This was an academic scholarship. He won $80,000. Florida.
Gosh, is this multiple sources? The scholarships
No.
From one source?
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
That's fantastic, Dean.
It's pretty awesome.
This is wonderful to hear. Definitely things to celebrate. I'm wondering, what were some of your major challenges raising two boys as a Black man in a difficult to navigate at times society?
I guess the challenges for me were instilling, or my best to instill in both of them a sense of pride of being young Black men, and a sense of giving, and a sense of appreciation. Those are some things that I've always tried to really drive home with them. And then just really having pride in being a Black man, because as is the case now, it was the case with them growing up, where often Black men were not portrayed as positive citizens or people of society, and just they were often, and still are, looked at as threats, as not as smart as other people, not as motivated, not as productive. And so I really had to, kind of instill that old adage that we have to work twice as hard as the dominant culture to receive half of the praise. And so I was really big on that with them as well, trying to really just push them, but not and affirm them. Affirming them was a huge goal of mine, to affirm that they mattered, that they counted, that they were smart, that they were intelligent, that they were handsome, just all of that, just all of the things that, to me, society says Black men and men of color are not.
Yeah, so that is a high calling. It is sometimes a big hurdle Because you've got society saying one thing and you've got the home saying something else. But ideally, and in your case, it played out that they got the message that they are more than enough, that they are worthy, that they are good kids, because we are seeing the fruits of your labor and play out in their lives. I mean, it's kind of cool. All right, so what is now your perspective about love and marriage? Because if I remember correctly, you're still single, right?
Yes.
And I mean in terms of marriage, I'm not in terms of a relationship, but what are your, because you could not be married and in a relationship and it's fine. The question I'm asking is, what is your perspective now about love and relationships and marriage?
Well, that's a good one. That's a good one. Well,
I try.
My experiences have not jaded me. I still believe in love. I still believe in marriage. So I'm not jaded. Would I have hoped for different outcomes? Absolutely. But I'm still all for it. I'm still all for it. I hope that, my sons find true love and partnership and I've always believed in there's a soulmate for everyone and I would love that for me, but I really want that for my sons as well. So I'm still fine with it. I'm still hopeful. Yeah.
So one of the things I'm hearing you say is that I'm guessing the conversations that you're having with your sons are absent of women, be careful, they could do you wrong, be sure, you're having babies beforehand. I mean, I'm guessing
Absolutely.
Those kinds of conversations.
Well, I mean, of course, I want them to be careful. And of course, I've always emphasized, not having kids until they're ready and really just making sure that they are careful if they engage in sexual activity and just really to be respectful of themselves and whomever they find themselves with or choose to be with. I definitely have had those conversations, and I still do. I do want them to be happy, but I do want them. I think they both have so much to offer and so much that they still want to do. They both are interested in becoming doctors, and so I want them to really make sure that they focus on those goals first, and not saying that they can't or shouldn't have significant others, but just making sure that any relationship does not sidetrack their goals and their dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we're coming down to the last segment of our time together, but I want to ask you if you could give divorced dads, one specific and tangible resource that helped you that you think might help them too.
Oh. A tangible resource. Well, I would say, I would say the tangible resource is themselves to the greatest extent possible. That divorced dads, and I'm just going to say dads, period, whether they're with someone or not, or divorced or still married or whatever, they are their greatest resources. And by that I mean time. You spending time with your kids, engaging your kids, not allowing TVs, and games and computers to raise your kid, but just to be present and to really understand that no matter, and women as well, no matter what happens between the parents, the child should still come first. Or the child, your children, let me rephrase that. Your relationship should not dictate, or lack of relationship, or if the relationship's not going well, or divorce should not dictate your desire to parent your child or to be a father to your child. Unfortunately, I've been in that situation. I've been in it twice. Oftentimes breakups are hostile. Divorce can be very hostile. And I would urge both parents to really not allow that hostility to determine their relationship with their children. And so I would say to fathers, you are your greatest resource. Spend as much time with your kids as you can. Be as present in their lives as possible. They need to. I think three of the most important things that I did, and I know that they made a difference, was one, every time when I had my kids, and it's so funny, my oldest son just told me this a couple of weeks ago, how much it helped him. I would have dates with my kids, with my two boys. They were reading dates. And so when we got together, we would sit at the kitchen table and I let them eat junk food, pizza, ice cream, chips, whatever they wanted to, Chinese food, whatever they wanted to get. We would sit at that table and we would read. I would buy them books, I would take them to the library, whatever books they wanted to get, we would read silently. And then we would read to one another and we would ask each other inferential questions, who, what, when, where, why, summarize this. What do you think about the character? And I tried to make reading fun. And my oldest son just told me how much those reading dates meant and how much they helped him. And so, again, I was my greatest resource in that case. And they both read better than I do, and I still love to read, but those jokers, they can read and they can comprehend, So the second thing is, when they were 5 and 10, yes, because it's been 15 years. When they were 5 and 10, the three of us, became our activity. The three of us began to deliver food for a nonprofit in DC to people living with life-threatening illnesses and diseases. And I still do it to this day. And that became our activity. And I always, when they were 5 and 10 years old, I would say, how dare we not give back? And that was my way of trying to instill a sense of service and appreciation how dare we not give back when we've been so blessed? And so on Saturdays, we would go and we would deliver meals to people who were dying or living with life-threatening illnesses. And when they were younger, they were like, well, why do we do this? And I would just say, that could be anyone. Anyone could get sick. And we have an obligation, because we're blessed and we have the resources. We have an obligation to give back. And we still do it to this day. It's been 15 years. This year, it will make 15 years. And I remember my sons, and I would always ask for what they call the level 2 neighborhoods. And that was neighborhoods where most people wouldn't want to deliver. And I always requested those because I wanted my sons to see how people lived and how anyone can be in that situation. We delivered to homeless shelters. We delivered to some of the poorest neighborhoods in DC and Maryland. And I always asked for those neighborhoods so that my kids could see it. And I think now my kids get it. I think they understand. I think they're appreciative. And both of them have a sense of giving back. And so I think those are two of the probably the best things that I could have done. And so again, your resource is your time. Even if it's limited, find meaningful activities. And I said 3 things. The last thing I did that I thought was really, really amazing and probably one of the best things I did is when President Obama was running for office, then president-elect was running for office. I had never really gotten into politics. And the funny thing is my undergraduate degree is in political science, but I just never really was that hands-on until President Obama ran for office. And I would let my sons, I would purposely stop at his headquarters in DC and let them see me give money and tell them why I was giving money. And then we spent a weekend. We drove from DC to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and we spent a weekend canvassing for Barack Obama. And we knocked on about 100 doors over that weekend. And it was so amazing to see affluent white people open their doors and see these 2 little Black boys explaining why they supported Barack Obama and asking if he could count on their support as well. And that was just one of the coolest experiences for the 3 of us. And when President Obama won, I cheered. I mean, I celebrated my sons. And that weekend we went to a nice restaurant. I was like, we got a nice hotel room because I wanted to, reward them. And then I told them, and they were young, you all helped make history. You got involved, and this is how you can affect change. And so I know that that's something that they will always remember. Those 3 activities, I think they will always remember. And so you are your greatest resource.
I didn't even know that. I mean, I think I know a lot about you, but that is a marvelous story and a marvelous example of the difference, the simple but profound and long-term difference that we can make in our children's lives. You're not saying to dads, hey, go buy them the latest gadget, go buy them the greatest pair of shoes. No, you're speaking to the quality of time. And in that quality of time, you are cultivating a generation of strong Black men who will love themselves and therefore love others.
I hope so.
All right, so I have one last challenge question, and then we're moving to the rapid fire questions, which you don't know anything about. And then I will say goodbye, okay?
Okay.
The challenge question is this. What did the mother of your boys do well for which you can acknowledge her?
They both love their kids. They love them, and they both provided for them as best that they could. And I think they both encouraged them as well to be strong Black men. And so I applaud them for that. Absolutely.
I've got 10, the rapid fire questions, they are for me to ask you, and here are the rules, okay? The rules of the rapid fire segment. I ask a question and you have to complete it, but you can't think about it. So it's the first thing that comes to mind, you gotta fire it off, okay? So if I say the sky is
orange.
Great. See, that's what you have to do. Are you ready for the 10 rapid fire questions?
I think so. Do I need a drink first?
You might want to get one.
Uh-oh.
So I'm gonna put on my glasses for this so I can see the questions. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Question number 1. The next time I get married, oh Lord, you're thinking, you can't.
The person will be my friend first.
Say what?
The person will be my friend first.
Okay. Question number 2. The best thing about divorce is?
Peace of mind.
Number 3. My sons are stronger men because?
They have a father in their lives that cares about them.
Number 4. Nothing will stop me from?
Loving my children and supporting them.
Number 5. It's okay for a divorced dad to show his emotions because?
Because our children need that. They need the example of a man to show that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to cry, that it doesn't make you less of a man.
Number 6. Resilience is?
Loving your children and yourself in spite of any circumstances.
Number 7. The mistake I will never make again is?
Not fighting harder for my children.
Number 8. The best quality about myself is?
Putting others ahead of me.
Number 9. My best advice to divorced dads is?
Fight like hell for your kids to be a part of their lives.
And number 10. Forgiveness is impossible for the weak, but
I'm not sure about that question, but it's possible for.
Okay, let me answer it again. So let me give it to you again. Forgiveness is impossible for the weak, but
It's possible for the strong.
ooh.
That's the only thing. That's what came to mind.
Yes, that's good. That's cool. Well, Dana, I want to thank you so much. I'm so honored that you agreed to be my first guest and that you gave your insight, your wisdom, and your truth to us. We will be made better because you were willing to share what has been real for you. And thank you for raising two amazing young men who are going to change the way we think about Black men in America.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was an honor and a pleasure.
Okay. See you next time.
All right. Take care.